Good evening. I'd like to call this tonight's meeting. You'll have to bear with me because this is my first time as chairman, acting chairman, but we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We all stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, tonight I'm going to introduce the other commissioners. To my far right, we have alternate Gina Morgenstein. To her left, we have Jeffrey Cohan. To my immediate right, Jim Fitzsimmons. And then we have Casey Costello, town planner, and Cynthia Kleist, recording secretary. And I am Rocco Matarazzo, and I will be acting chair tonight. First order of business, we're going to approve April 12th, 2017 minutes. Any comments? What do we do? Do I have a motion? Right?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Wednesday, April 12th, 2017 meeting.
And
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All approved, minutes are approved. Right. So tonight we will not be hearing item 1, which is a special permit revision, 24 additional parking spaces, Nafis and Young. Item, reference that, doesn't matter. Also, we will not be hearing item number 2, special permit, retail residential, 902 Colony Realty, LLC, 900 to 902 South Colony Road, which brings us to item number 3, a special permit, retail office to retail residential, Di Natale Realty, 816 East Center Street. If the applicants would come forward. And if the secretary would read the legal notices and correspondence.
I'll read the correspondence into the record. So there is a correspondence dated March 28th, a letter from Rob Baltramitis, town engineer, to Mr. John Walworth. Additional correspondence is an interdepartmental notice from the department is that FMO, Fire Marshal. There is an interoffice memo to Casey Costello from Eric Kruger, senior engineer. There is a letter to Vincenzo Di Natale dated April 26th from Casey Costello. There is checklist number 405-17 from the Planning and Zoning Department. Really see a date. There is an interdepartmental memo from the town engineer, stamped April 27th. There is a letter to Casey Costello from Vincenzo Di Natale dated May 2nd. And that's it.
Thank you. And,
Do we want to read
excuse
the
me.
legal notice?
oh, legal notice, I'm sorry. Which is,
Gotta read this, Gina.
I'm good.
And the legal notice, this is for the hearing? Do you need me to read the whole?
Just for item number 3,
Just 3.
or for this
So
here.
the legal notice is number 405-17, special permit, upper story residential for Di Natale Real Estate to allow 1,485 square feet of existing second-story office space to be converted to one 3-bedroom apartment at 816 East Center Street, which is the East Side Market.
And thank you again. Casey, before we begin, do you want to comment on the set of plans, I guess, we just received?
Yeah, you have a set of plans that I just passed out to you that we received today. I think primarily addressing some of my comments. So it's up to you how, whether you want to move forward with any discussion tonight or you want additional time to review the plans at this point.
I think the other commissioner, I think the consensus is we can open and listen to your presentation, and I think without the other commissioners here to review, I think we wouldn't be able to act on it this evening. But you can certainly hear it, your presentation.
Well, we'd hope to keep an open mind because of the simplicity of this application, but if we may, we could do a brief introduction. Property the subject property is known as 816 East Center Street. We all know that as the East Side Market property. Our application actually involves a small office that's on the second floor above the space that was formerly the Travel Works. The East Side Market is a one-story structure. If you're facing the building to the right, there is a 1,400 square foot addition that was put on over the years, and on the second floor, there was an office. So we're here before you for change of use from a 1,400 square foot office to residential, which actually, in fact, the parking requirements for the existing use versus the proposed are less. So we're actually reducing the parking requirements for what exists. You know, in the big scheme of this multi-use property, this is very minor. This is one property that is owned by Di Natale Realty. Our main objective is to cater towards the main tenant, East Side Market. They seem to exist in this neighborhood as a good neighbor and have been over the years, and our goal is that they continue in this manner. And this, because this is an opportunity for us to make some site improvements, which in fact it's not directly related to the change of use that's at stake in this application. So we have some prepared comments we'd like to share, and maybe we can go through this briefly. As part of our application for a change of use from office to a second floor apartment, we are proposing several additional improvements, including resurfacing the parking lot, the entire parking lot, new curbing and striping. Therefore, despite our efforts, it was regret that we were not able to display the revised plans tonight earlier. However, we're hopeful that we might be agreed to the disposition of the various items in her letter. So there was a checklist that she had provided. I think some are worthy of discussion and others were just sort of off the shelf, some information like spot elevations that we've included on the plan. But again, I want to reiterate, this is about a 1,400 square foot office that we're converting to residential. And we're in fact reducing the parking requirements overall on this entire site. I think some of the highlights that you see before you is that we are proposing to relocate one of the parking spaces, the handicap parking spaces. We meet the full requirements for handicap parking. We're going to move one space closer. We chose one space here because it was ideal to the ramp that exists there, and the current parking lot grade in that area was desirable. We can go down the checklist of items if you like, John, or is there any other specific highlights?
Casey had prepared a good letter which had highlighted the history of the site and requests that a full site plan approval be part of the change of use. We had intended to come in with a plan today, but our engineer wasn't able to produce that. But we're eager to respond to her questions and concerns And if you are so inclined, we can do that right now.
And I would just like to add one final note. As required, this is a special permit. This is one of the most, probably least intensive special permit applications you've seen. But as required, we posted the special permit signs on East Side Market. And as you can imagine, people are asking a lot of questions, thinking it involves them. And a decision tonight would allow us to remove the signs. A delayed decision, the signs would be maintained, you know, and people might be getting the wrong message that maybe something is impacting the entire site and the entire building. So I'll leave it at that.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree, and I think the only thing I want to add to the record is we did change our procedure that we wouldn't review and act on something received the day of the meeting. That it's a procedural issue. I think the application is unremarkable. That's not positive or negative. I mean, to go from office to residential, it's a reduction in parking. It's a mature site. I mean, everything you've presented appears to be a non-issue. However, since we just received a map tonight, it's a procedure that I would tell you I support the chairman that we really shouldn't vote on it. But I don't have any issues with the application. I do think knowing the site, knowing the area, the reduction in parking requirements and going down from retail to residential is certainly an improvement in that very busy intersection. So I have no objections, but based on what the chairman said, I
May
don't.
just clarification,
This is the map we got today.
Pardon me?
We brought this today. No, this is the revision.
I'm sorry.
I went to his norm.
They've been here before.
This was brought in, but it was just brought this morning.
I apologize. Go ahead. I thought this map was not going to be available today, so that's why I'm a little, that's why.
Additional comments? Commissioner? Ms. Morrissey?
I'll just make the comment similar to Mr. Fitzsimmons. I'm certainly inclined to approve. I think in general, retail on the bottom, housing on the top is a goal of development nowadays, and any improvement to the structure of the parking lot. I actually drive by there every day on my way home and see the curb that's kind of all crumpled up. But
Maybe I can ask the question in a different format. If you didn't have this map tonight,
right, I guess.
and you had our previous
The other
map,
paperwork.
could you not approve this conditional upon response, final deposition to her comments?
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
This is my first time looking at the map tonight, and I just want to comment that when you apply for a special permit, you do open up the entire site to review by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there are several elements of this site that don't comply with their last two approvals, so those need to be addressed. So, in fact, the site is a subject of this application. In looking at the plan that we got tonight, there are some comments of mine that have been addressed, but there are some that I'm not sure I concur with the way they've been addressed. So I do think that the commission should have the opportunity to review these and discuss these a little bit further. So from my perspective, even if we didn't have revised plans, it would make us further away from being ready for action, not closer. And so the two things that you might want to have a conversation about tonight that at least come to mind in first looking at the plan are the distance of the proposed handicap space to the main entrance. I'm not sure why, it would require some changing to curbing, but the 3 handicap spaces are awfully far away from the main door when there are parking spaces right outside the door. And also that there is some opportunity for some landscaping on this property in areas that are currently just striped. And I think that that's consistent with the requirements of your regulations. So maybe it would be worth having a conversation about the commission's position about those things.
If I may, and
Good.
If, the first one with the handicap parking space, we look to put it as close as we can, and one of the criteria for, is the grade. And so the East Side Market, right, immediately at the front door, it's too steep and doesn't qualify the way the building was built. So it's a little bit too steep of a grade for an ADA compliant space. So because we actually looked at the East Main Street corner was ideal, where there's a hatched area. We were gonna do it in that location. But the existing grade is too steep for that. And so when he gathered the spot elevations, he thought that the space here was fairly close, the grades met that match.
What's the maximum grade for a handicap parking space?
I'm not sure, I don't remember the exact figure. I mean, we are open to moving it as close, and I'm not sure if, that was feedback from Norm, so if that's not a factor, that's the only match we're worried about is the grade. So we can move it as close as we can as long as we meet that grade requirement, and that front corner just got a little too steep.
What?
So I can check that number with Norm.
Yeah, it would be helpful to know what the grades there are, because the spot grades don't really tell us very much.
Okay. But that was what controlled it. I mean, we went right for the front door, and then he pulled it away as he met that ideal grade. We're happy to keep it at the front door, but I'm not sure if technically that meets the ADA, it's not ADA compliant.
It would be difficult, I think, at that grade, at that location, for a handicapped individual to navigate.
Are the existing handicap spaces by the front door now?
No, so if you were facing the building door to the right, there's 3 shown.
Those 3?
2 on the right there are, and that's the flat area of the site. And if you actually, it's, if when they were to pull in there and exit the vehicles, then it's a straight shot to the existing sidewalk. And that's why I think that seemed a logical place for the spaces originally. We can actually, while you're thinking about it, we can just go through briefly on some of the comments, just to give you a better understanding of some of the hurdles that we had with the site. I think number 1 statement in Casey's letter is pretty self-explanatory. It's a pre-existing site. It's a tough site, and even when it was originally done, they were working with a building that was probably built a little too close to the street line, and that's just how it was at that point. And number 2, let's see. It was just a comment about the existing site plan. Number 3, I think it's discussion. We talked about number 5. I think there's probably the.
Well, you met on 3 with Casey.
Yes. Let's see, these are some statements here in between. We talked about number 5 with the handicap spaces. Tenant parking, number 6, they'd be encouraged to park at the rear of the site, obviously, so they can coexist with the retail space. Number 7 is a screen dumpster that we've provided on the new map. And then number 8 is the landscaping, which Casey discussed. There's some areas that we can easily add landscaping where it borders the residential in the area of the dumpsters. In the front, it's tricky because we currently have hatched areas, and because of the site constraints, we thought it'd be easier with the hatched areas, and it would be easier for the vehicles maneuvering in and out of that site. In an ideal world, the building would be set further back, there'd be grassed areas and better egress into a site, and that's just what pre-exists, similar to a lot of the buildings that are at the downtown site. And then there was finally, there was some technical data, which was like the topographic that was, and zoning table, which we added to the map. And then finally, there was discussion about the sidewalks. And if you'll notice that this site is very unusual, if you notice where the state right-of-way line is, it would be a challenge to construct your conventional sidewalks. And we were willing to do some striping to better control the pedestrian access on this site. So we didn't think that the sidewalks would work as they would typically in a conventional commercial development.
Ms. Morgeson?
Striping meaning literally just pedestrian walkway, color the black asphalt in
Yeah,
some
we
different way?
identified, I think, we believe that the high traffic area would be from the corner, the front corner of East Side Market to the signal crossing at the intersection. So we do one striping, so if you were to walk from the building to cross the street to go to the other businesses, which are Gigante's 2 and a Subway there, that would be ideal. So the pedestrian traffic would either come from the intersection to the front of the building or go across the front of the building in the direction of the handicap spaces. Because it's just, there's not enough room.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
And
you're really pretty much
truly,
on the ground.
the existing sidewalk in front of the building does offer refuge to cross in front of the building and then down to the corner.
So, this is a very tough site. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. There is no perfect solution for this site. And originally, I do think there is a layout that perhaps would be more consistent with the regulations, which would involve sort of a one-way cycle around the building. But I think that, which is something we could talk about if the commission has, wants to pursue that. It wouldn't be that hard design-wise, but I think that the general opinion was that people are familiar with the site, people are used to using it this way, people are used to parking in it this way. And so some people feel that it makes more sense to sort of leave it like it is. There is probably some middle ground that could be reached for that. So I do think that the large striped area proposed to the west side, that west corner there, where the corner of East Main and East Center, that corner of the building, that large striped area, certainly could have some landscaping in it. I don't really see any reason that it couldn't at least in part have some landscaping in it. And I do think that the commission should be aware this is an opportunity to address issues at this site because there is a special permit application. So if there are concerns, if there are items that you think could be addressed in a better way, that's like I said, I do think there is a layout that would be more consistent with current requirements, but I'm not sure would actually function in real life better for the site. I also do have a call in, unfortunately, the person that we talked to at DOT at District 3 was out last week, but I did put a call into him as well, because I think their position on this site would be helpful to understand. The last time around, as I noted in my letter, the Planning and Zoning Commission had a requirement sort of similar to what I was describing before, where the driveway off of East Main Street was made a normal sized driveway and you came in and you had to turn left into the parking lot and then all the spaces faced the same way and you kind of cycled around. This state wouldn't allow for that level of change within the state's right-of-way for the curbing. So you could require some modifications to the actual striping if you wanted to, but it appears, and that's why I wanted current input from DOT, it appears that they would not want, that the commission wouldn't be able to require significant changes within the right-of-way, so like a significant extension of the curbing or anything like that along either of the roads. So for the most part, I don't have any major objection to the layout the way it is. You know, again, there is no perfect solution here. I think there are some tweaks that could be made that would be improvements. I'd like to explore the option of moving the handicap space closer. And I also would like to explore adding at least a little bit of green where we can.
Okay.
Perhaps between now and the next meeting, we can meet with Casey and implement some of those suggestions. We could work with her, and we can take a closer look at the grade for the ADA, the space, and try to move it closer to the front entrance.
Makes sense, yeah. I think, before we move forward, we'll just see if we have any comments from the public. Anybody? Nope. Let me just bring it back to the commission. Any comments, Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, just you know, one comment. Yeah, generally I'm pretty good with the plan with the minor tweaks. I think if you came back, you know, with some, you know, landscaping details, you know, for me, you know, that's really the only thing I'm questioning.
Okay. And I would say with the comments from the commission, comments from Casey, being that we just received these revised plans, that you guys probably, like you said, suggested go back, meet with Casey, address some of the comments, and then Casey, we should get comments from town engineer. Just basically have these plans reviewed again and
Okay.
get comments back,
Okay.
and then address it, readdress it, or revisit it next month.
The commission should take a vote for whatever your action is going to be. If it's to continue the public hearing, you should vote to continue the public hearing.
Okay? Can we- else?
Well, for just on the, so if they choose to continue the public hearing, the public notice is okay, or does it have to be?
You do not have to re-notify or repost because we've already opened it. So the idea being, everybody knows if they were interested, they'd be here.
Thank you.
But the signs say,
Stay out, stay out.
Yep,
Just through you, Mr. Chairman, so the signs can come down is what is the question?
Yes,
That's what I figured,
Yes.
yeah. Because we've opened the meeting, the
we've
notice,
opened it, right,
check, we all saw the sign, so they can take the sign
Right.
down, even though we're continuing it.
right.
Gotcha.
Great, okay.
the
All
market
right,
stays
thank
open.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the store is not.
okay, so I want to bring it back to commission for motion to continue next month.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue our public hearing for special permanent retail office to retail residential Di Natale Realty, 816 East Center Street, to our June meeting.
Have a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And see you next month.
Thank you, sir.
I know, it is. The pledge is your hardest part.
Okay, that brings us to our next item, which is a zoning text amendment. PZC 6.5B floodplain regulations update FEMA map reference to 2017 maps. Mrs. Morgenstein, if you could read any
Correspondence for the record are a certified mail letter to Mayor Dickinson dated, well, it's stamped received April 21st, 2017. It's a letter from Rachel Sears, Director of Floodplain Management Division Mitigation Directorate at FEMA. There is also an interdepartmental checklist from someone who scribbles.
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal. And another interdepartmental notice from the town engineer, Mr. Baltramitis, and another interdepartmental notice from Department of Housing,
Oh, that's the next application. You're
Oh,
good.
I'm sorry, that's 5. And then there's the legal notice. The legal notice reads, number 905-17 zoning text amendment. You want me to read the notice? Yes. 6.5B floodplain regulations for the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Department to revise the date of the referenced flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps from December 17th, 2010 to May 16th, 2017, as provided and required by the Federal Emergency Management Association, FEMA. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Casey?
Okay, so we talked about this at your last workshop, which fortunately most of you were present for. The
We were all there.
This is a pretty simple change as far as the actual change from the commission's perspective. It's a change to your zoning regulations to reference the new floodplain maps that have been, the updated maps that have been provided by FEMA. So basically we're changing the numbers of the maps that are referenced. That's really the only, that is the only text that changes as far as your zoning regulations. You're going from referencing the 2010 maps to the 2017 maps. They do review our regulations, or did review our regulations already to make sure that there weren't any other changes. We've already made the necessary changes from the 2010 round. So essentially what that means is that our current regulations are consistent with what what FEMA's looking for in terms of floodplain regulation, and the state has also reviewed them. And I did speak to our representative at the state about them. The maps themselves, I did provide to you on disc previously. They are, I wouldn't say any of the changes are major changes. In some places, the floodplain mapping increased a little bit, and in some places it decreased a little bit. Basically, as they refine their technology, they're able to make more accurate maps. Anyone who has had a map, what we call a LOMA, a letter of map amendment, approved since 2010. This is a sort of improvement in the process. So if someone has had a LOMA done, basically where they were shown as being in the floodplain on the maps, but they had their property, their elevation verified by a surveyor and proved that they were above the flood elevation so basically they're out of the floodplain. Those LOMAs all will still stand. So I have a list of those. We keep a running file on them, and then FEMA sent us all the ones that would stand. So anyone that has done it does not have to do it again on their property.
Okay, bring you back to commission. Any comments? Mr. Cohen?
Mr. Chairman, just for Casey, as far as an effective date for the motion, would we do it for May 16th or, effective today?
You can make it, usually we would make it effective for this Friday, so you can still, I would say still do that, because that's the day that we'll post it in the town clerk's office. And that works out okay if we make it effective before their date.
That's it.
Anybody else? Hearing any comments from the public? Bring it back to commission or
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a zoning regulation text amendment for the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission to change the Federal Emergency Management Agency flood map numbers that are referenced in the regulations in order to update the new FEMA flood maps that will become effective in May as proposed in application language, subject to an effective date of Friday, May 12th.
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And pass. That's it. Next Next one.
Yep.
Okay, we have, let me see. It's like item 5
And 6.
and 6. Are they being, okay, are they being postponed or, green energy products or,
Are they here?
Is the applicant
they here?
here?
no?
No.
It's being
Been
postponed?
postponed.
Okay. So items 5 and 6, the composting facility, Green ME Products, Sterling Drive. Good. And item 6, again, Green ME Products, 90 Takewood Road, will be postponed. Request of the applicant. So it moves to item number 7, subdivision of 5 lots, Di Natale 605 North Elm Street.
Postponed.
Postponed?
I think.
That was a question.
So,
No?
I think it's
Yeah.
postponed.
Hold on, yeah, wait for her.
Yeah. Okay, so, Di Natale, item 7, postponed?
5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7. Okay.
Well, we're out of bounds.
Why don't we jump down to item number 10. Olet, is it Olet? 10 Hazley Drive, the applicant come forward.
Good evening.
If you could state your name and address,
Tom Olet, 10 Halsey Drive.
thank you. And we're looking for a survey waiver request?
Yeah, I was here last month and I drew a better map this time.
That's right, I remember, I remember. That's right, did we get a copy of the better map?
Yeah.
We have a copy of it? Oh, yeah. And
I'm sorry, 10A.
Yeah, at the last meeting, there was some question about whether the drawing you had was to scale and what the actual distances were off the property line. So Mr. Ouellette and I have had a couple of conversations, and he went out and made
Photos, yeah.
several measurements from the property line and from the center line of the road. Engineering also went out and staked out. Engineering will survey the street line for you, for us, the street line, because the street line is the right-of-way line as to what's the town's right-of-way. So in this case, it's a corner lot, so that actually provided a lot of information in terms of where those two property lines are. It's in an RU 40 zone, I believe, which means a 50-foot front yards. So you have them 50-foot front yards, 30-foot sides, so you have the measurements.
Okay, so we've got two, for sake, front
Two
yards.
front yards and 2 sides,
And
yeah.
2 side yards, okay. And it looks like
Oh, yeah, jeez.
we're within the regs for the front yards and side yards? No? Yes?
Yeah, according to the information that's been provided,
Yeah.
you're well within that. So what you're looking for is a certain comfort level that we know it's compliant with the zoning regulations and that the property owner does in fact know where the property line is. So I think from last meeting to this meeting, that was what the commission was looking for a little more information about.
Okay. Any comments from commission? Mr. Fitzsimmons?
Just one, I apologize, through you, Mr. Chairman. The engineering department did a survey of the street line marker?
No,
Is that-
they will not survey like your corners or anything like that, but they will mark out where the right-of-way line is.
Gotcha.
Because it's the town-owned right-of-way. So they won't do anything involving the private property or where your property might end and the next one starts, but they'll mark out the overall right-of-way line.
It's a public hearing, so any comments from the public? None? Seeing
Yeah,
none?
one.
There's one public person out there with no comment.
Better not say anything.
All right, bring it back to the commission. Nothing. Casey, anything? Nothing?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a survey waiver request for Olette, 10 Halsey Drive.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Morgenstein, and voting beginning with Mrs. Morgenstein?
Yes.
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 And yes. Your application's been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And that brings us back to bond releases, Casey.
Yep. Okay, bond releases, items number 8 and 9, which are the Choate Kohler Center, which is the Environmental Center, and the Lanphier Center, which is the Math Science Building. Those are both ready for release.
I don't have a memo on those, do you?
It's in there somewhere.
So we need a motion on that.
Do we have memos on those?
Those were carryovers from the month before, I think.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve bond releases and reductions for special permit Choate East Main Street Kohler Environmental Center and special permit Choate 205 North Elm Street Lanphier Center.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, survey waiver fees, we talked about this last month about giving people the option of applying for survey waivers administratively, since we've been seeing more of them lately. And I think there's getting to be a pretty good comfort level in reviewing them. The one thing that I did want, that I realized we didn't talk about last month, was typically with our administrative applications, there's a $130 fee associated with those applications. And my recommendation would be that we do include that fee, because there is staff time involved in processing, not dissimilarly from other applications in terms of meeting with the people and processing the application. It's a reasonable fee. Right now, there's not a fee for the survey waiver requests, and I think that given that we have fees for all the other applications, it's fair, it's a reasonable fee, so I wanted to recommend that we charge that same administrative $130, but I wanted to make sure the commission was comfortable with that, or not.
Comments?
We're not charging anything right now?
Right.
That was my question, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get the free street marker survey.
You get our stuff versus our paid employee.
Oh, I would support.
It seems completely appropriate. It just feels a little bit awkward that we've been doing many of them for free. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason was that it was procedurally, it wasn't made into a formal application. It's been sort of this request option. And when we were having very few of them, we didn't pay as much attention to that fact, but now that it's getting to be more common and we have a lot of them, it's become, we're spending time on them, so it seems to make sense. And certainly the cost of a survey is significantly higher than the $130, so.
Anybody else? Yep.
I would support the fee. And is the idea with the fee, we would still see it, or the fee would be now we'll see it more administratively?
Well, what we talked about last month was allowing them to be, allowing people to request approval administratively. So we would send it to you through the normal administrative process, and then if it was, they will take it might be more common in these cases than in some other administrative applications where you decide that you do want it to come to a meeting because there's some question about the property lines. I will try to comment on the ones where I think that it's questionable. So the idea was that someone could request it administratively, they would pay that fee either way, whether they came to a meeting or administrative.
Well, one other question through you, Mr. Chairman. Because your office is next to the building office, are people realizing that it's working? I mean, because by way of background, and I think the reason we added this was people were getting building permits to add on to a condo when they don't own land. So the only way to avoid that was to require a survey of your property, so you have to have property to be able to come in planning and zoning. So whenever someone in town asks me, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do a survey? It's because there was a procedural problem where people were getting permits to do things where they didn't truly own the property, they owned a condo. So if you think of it like that, or we had a case where someone put their pool on someone else's property, the property line. So in that case, is this working by requiring a survey? And even though now we're seeing more requests for waivers, is it still working?
I believe it is, because we still, I think I have a pretty good sense and I'm pretty well able to advise people about what's likely to be appropriate for a waiver and what isn't. So you're mostly seeing waiver requests for things like porches and dormers and things like that. Garages, additions, typically people are getting those surveys done. And I do think that people, it's like you mentioned with the pool, someone thought their property line was in one place, that's where they represented, built their pool, and the pool wasn't even just in the setback, the pool was actually over the property line. So, and it was an in-ground swimming pool. So I think that we are preventing people find out that their property line sometimes is somewhere different than where they thought it was. So, you know, I mean, it is an added expense, and obviously people don't like that, but I think it often can save people a lot of expense in the long run from having built something in the wrong place. And there is this option, if somebody has a really good sense of where their property lines are, they have the option of the waiver. If they've had a survey done in the past, so anything built since '88 has a survey already, they're allowed to use that. So I do think it's helpful.
Do you want a motion, or is it discussion?
Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I'll just comment for the record. I'd support the $130 fee as well, and just, you know, Casey, I think, you know, as far as the administrative approval process, I think you've handled that really well, so I'm really, you know, comfortable with that. So, and I guess the next question is, do we need a motion to, you know, add this fee?
Yes, I think you should make a motion.
Okay. We have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to have a $130 survey waiver fee.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Great. Next, election of officers. You do not have your full regular board here, so we'll wait until June.
No more campaigning.
Okay, item number 13, scheduling of workshop. So at the last workshop, we only had 3 people there, 3 commissioners there. So we opted, or the commissioners opted not to move forward with the discussions about the neighborhood business district or the electronic message boards, because we didn't want to we figured it would be redundant to have the conversation more than once. So I'm proposing that we schedule another workshop to talk about these things. Actually, if I had known the agenda was going to be so short, to end up being so short, I might have suggested we do it tonight, but. So I'm proposing, typically we do, you've scheduled your workshops for a Monday towards the end of the month, so like the last Monday in May.
It's the holiday.
That's the holiday. Okay, let's see. There's also the second to last month, the 22nd.
I'm shot till June. I'm shot.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know about any.
Do you want, I can send out
Do we have enough people here to
poll?
know? Yeah, send out
Yeah.
one of your polls.
Probably-
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot out an email.
yeah.
Okay, ZBA decisions of April. Despite my forward, or my, at the last meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission opted to issue a report on items number 1 and number 5. And so was it what, number 1 and 5? Wait a minute. Yes, items number 1 and 5. And so I did provide those to the Zoning Board of Appeals. However, the applications were all approved. Okay, this upcoming meeting, there is, I don't think really anything of any major significance. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, that's right. It was item number 5, and then the one that's showing up as item number 3 for this coming meeting, because that one got postponed. So there is a report for item number 3 for their upcoming meeting, and it was only item number 5 that's shown on their post-meeting legal notice. So that one was approved. This one was postponed. This is the one, item number 3, 1163 South Broad, where they're looking to, they're basically making some vertical additions as improvements to the building. They're planning to use for all 3 floors. There's like a lower level, a first floor, and a second floor. And in using the second level, part of what they're proposing to do is create some significant dormer additions to create more usable space. And typically that would require that the site be brought into compliance with current regulations. There's not a compliant parking lot, or really a marked out parking lot. So they are requesting to not have to bring anything into compliance, and the commission did file a report on that last month, expressing some concern. Obviously, some of the, there's no reason why a basic parking lot can't be provided and can't be brought up to the general standards. So that report will stand, but there's no decision made on that yet. The other 2 are an expansion in the number of kids for a preschool program, and a pool house, large pool house type building. And then finally, the zoning enforcement log. As usual, I will leave that up to you. I will note, in case, just for your information, we have, there's a subdivision being built on Church Street that you approved quite a while ago. It's now under construction. We did have some runoff and S&E problems out on that site, so twice. So I did meet with them at the end of the day on Friday and some of the neighbors, and that is being addressed pretty proactively at this point. But there were some significant water problems. And then otherwise I'll leave it to you if you have any questions.
Anything for the commission? Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Aye.
There you go.